Welcome. This video is entitled Why WWE Fans Are STANS. Now, in my humble opinion, WWE fans are not generally, or I wouldn't generally see them as wrestling fans specifically, because to be a WWE fan, you have a different approach to how you see your wrestling entertainment, or more so the conditioning you have went through, or you have put yourself or went through over the years. And a lot of WWE fans have never watched anything outside of WWE itself. They've never watched TNA, they've never watched WCW, even the older stuff, WCCW, AWA, anything along those lines, New Japan Pro Wrestling, AEW. Doesn't matter what it is. For example, a reason that WWE fans are stands is because if AEW puts out prime product, let's say not only from an in-ring perspective where it's, let's say, a technical match, where let's say hypothetically speaking, the match was super technical, it had a lot of story in it in regards to the wrestling itself, set a story, and then the storyline around it encompassing the match itself was brilliantly put together. These WWE stands would basically shard all over AEW or that specific storyline, and thus a reason WWE fans are stands. They will literally, basically anything outside their perception of reality in regards to wrestling or entertainment, sports entertainment, is basically non-existent, or they can't fathom it being either on the level, near the level of it, or above the level of that current product. Let's say for the current year, and this is post WrestleMania 42 in regards to 2026 wrestling WWE product itself. Now, WWE stands are very, very docile. I find it's as if WWE fans has a nucleus core group or a fan base where it's basically what's remaining at the current moment. So let's say from my last recollection or know about, when it comes to the Nielsen rating for, let's say, Raw, I believe the last I heard of it was a couple months ago, and it was around a 1.6 or so, and that's like the lowest it's ever been. This was prior to it going on Netflix, right? So it was a 1.6 Nielsen rating, where at one point, let's say about 1999, 2000, around that era, the Attitude Era, the Nielsen rating got up high about, or maybe a little bit before those years, but Attitude Era itself, they were at a 6.5, 6, they would get a rating alongside, let's say, WCW Monday Nitro, where they would get like astonishing ratings like that weekly, 4 to 5. So imagine you're getting two wrestling products every Monday during the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, and each would get from a low end of a 3 to a 6 in the Nielsen rating. And from my understanding of that, that's what, like, you're like 10 to 20 million people on average are watching wrestling through two different distinct companies at the time, weekly on the Monday nights, right? And now fast forward to 2026, you have a 1 point, let's say, 6 or whatever I mentioned, and that's absolute butchery of your whole fan base, the wrestling demographic itself, people who enjoy wrestling, the idea of wrestling. Back in the day when I grew up watching wrestling, I used to, because even when it was popular, in a sense, more popular than it is now, and you cannot say to me that wrestling is as popular as it was back, let's say, 25, 6 years ago. There's no inkling about it. There's no way. People used to know wrestling characters, personalities more than they do now. The only way you know a wrestling personality is, let's say, for example, like a Brock Lesnar, who made his name in WWE and then went out and became UFC champion, got mainstream notoriety, and then came back to WWE, where they have kind of a bigger name than wrestling would or is able to give them, right? But long story short, what I'm saying is that these the leftover, the remnants of these fans, the 1.6, or not even is basically their nucleus, where they'll take anything you give them. And this is why their stands is they'll take anything you give them and run with it. They'll watch the product. If it was somebody just sitting in the ring for the 3 hours, and just speaking nonstop in a sense of babbling, where it was not even a promo anymore. Because at 3 hour point, if one person's speaking for a 3 hour show, of course that's speaking generally. Of course, it wouldn't be a 3 hour show with the commercials and so on. But let's say hypothetically, 3 hour promo. These fans would watch it day in, day out, week to week, and still be WWE stans. I wouldn't even call them fans. Basically, they'll take whatever you give them and run with it. You'll give them 10 previous situations where, let's say, they're making a wrestling superstar like larger than life, like a mainstream main eventer. And for example, let's say the 10 previous attempts at it with 10 different individuals, where, for example, they've shot their shot, and all of a sudden, it went nowhere. They've done that countless times. They've given individuals world title championship wins, the WWE championship wins, where they're one-time, champions in that regard, and nothing came about them. For example, Jack Hager, recently, as he's known, and of course in WWE, he was known as Jack Swagger. He was world heavyweight champion. And who is he in wrestling? What is he in wrestling? He's a nobody when you look at it long term and look at it at the current stage of things. But for example, they'll take anything you give them, and then let's say the 11th time you try the same thing, they'll the initial thing or whatever moment, push or whatever, it goes well, as it always does. Anything initially will always go well. But then they'll basically, oh, this is the next big thing, this is the next big person, this is the next big thing, but it's like, what are you guys doing? What's going to happen, and it does happen, as it has 10 times previously. This person or individual flops, and not necessarily due to that wrestling personality, but the storylines they're given, the scenarios they're put in, where at one moment they're hot, the next minute they're cold. It's primarily like Obafemi. I'm not going to lie. He has a great physique. He does not have a presence. Just because you're large, individual in structure, muscular, does not give you a presence as in charisma. He does not have that. And me speaking objectively as a wrestling fan and not as a WWE stan would say that. And you can see it just by being honest with yourself. But WWE stans, on the other hand, will literally look at you and say, oh my goodness, Brock Lesnar put him over WrestleMania 42 and this and that, he's going to be this and that. It's like, bro, the thing just started. His push just started. It's like, wait and see, because if you go by the 10 previous attempts with the 10 previous other people, you're going to think, okay, the statistical probability of him going over and becoming a main eventer in the proper way is no, he won't. It's like, look at, what's his name? Oh my goodness, I forgot, the Archer, the Hispanic individual. I don't recall his name right now. It's at the top of my head. Sorry, I'm just playing Yakuza, and there's a lot of dialogue you have to read through, so kind of stumped. Damian Priest, yes, there it is. And he got the world title on him and everything, and you'd think, okay, they were going with him. People are saying he's the next, he's going to be a main eventer, he's going to be a big player, and then no, he's literally nothing. They literally put a last-minute plans with him and R-Truth to win the tag team titles, where, it's like, what the heck's going on? Basically an afterthought. But WWE stans are basically, they live in a bubble. It's almost as if they're like non-playable characters, and basically if you sold the company 10 times over in the span of 5 years with 10 different ownerships, let's say TKO sold it to Disney and Disney sold it to Paramount, you will have that core nucleus follow that brand along the way, even if the whole structure of everything changes drastically in like the biggest ways possible that they haven't, let alone from the change from Vince McMahon to TKO. These fans will follow because they are stans. They're literally like NPC players. They're literally just as if they don't have critical thinking, free will, or thought of any kind. They basically are programmed to be like, yeah, I'm a wrestling fan or a WWE fan, and that's what they go with. WWE fans are basically, to them, nothing exists wrestling wise out of that bubble. Basically, if WWE Raw came to town and was the worst of the worst type of jobbers on the whole card, and it was advertised, and the card was $300 for midsection seats, they will go over. They'd go to that event because it's WWE, rather than, let's say, if a local bigger indie promotion came to town where it was like, oh my goodness, they're having, let's say, a main event war games type match and stuff like that, and the tickets are, I can get my whole family of, let's say, hypothetically speaking, of four in with pop and popcorn for everybody, for four tickets included, like very close to, closer to the action and everything, for $80. They will literally turn down that idea or notion, because to them, they are not wrestling fans, they are WWE fans. That's another reason. To them, nothing exists outside the scope of WWE, and if it didn't happen in WWE, it never happened. For example, when CM Punk was in AEW, uh, sure, they might have had a little bit of a bigger ratings overall for Dynamite and so on, but it was nothing drastic where it was like, when The Rock shows up to WWE, where all of a sudden you're getting close to 1 million more people watching, let's say, a SmackDown or something like that. It happened with Cody Rhodes too. He wasn't a draw in AEW because he's not a draw. CM Punk isn't a draw. You know what I mean? You can't compare these people as draws in wrestling compared to people, let's say, a Hulk Hogan back in the day, or a Steve Austin, The Rock back in the day, because wherever these people went back in the day, as wrestling was more popular, people would follow. But at the same time, to these people now, let's say when they went back to WWE, all of a sudden, oh my goodness, this and that. And to them, they don't understand the scope of, they were in AEW for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years, whatever. To them, that doesn't exist. That makes them stans. You know what I'm trying to say? Basically, these people do not understand what being a wrestling fan means. For me personally, I've watched WCW, I've watched the WWF, WWE, TNA. As a wrestling fan, I really enjoyed the Attitude Era, and that's what got me into wrestling as a child. And, I noticed at that point in time, around 2006, 7, it wasn't what it used to be, but nowhere near as bad as it is now. But, I'm a wrestling fan, so I enjoy that type of more storyline driven, character driven wrestling. And I ended up figuring out and finding out about TNA and luckily around that time period. So from 2006 to 2009, for example, I watched TNA Impact weekly. And that at the same time was TNA's best era. A lot of people remember that and know about TNA from that time period. And I didn't watch WWE because it wasn't what I felt it could have been or should be, or what it once was. And for me, I'm a wrestling fan. So, and then now with AEW, not that AEW is perfect, but overall it feels like a wrestling promotion, wrestling product, and I watch it more consistently than I do WWE. But still, see, I'm a wrestling fan, so of course I watch and keep up to date with the WWE as well. But these stans don't do that. They don't do that at all. They can't fathom of doing that. And, basically whatever you force feed them, they're going to watch. They're going to, take and run with it. And, when statistically speaking, it doesn't flourish into what it could be because they flop on it, they'll still run with it. They'll still be like, oh, whatever, this upcoming person, they're going to make him a big star. Same thing, rinse and repeat. Basically, they're fools. The ticket prices for WWE events are astronomical. To me, it's like, okay, even if you were a multi-millionaire, and you had that capability of paying $10,000, $20,000, $5,000 for a ticket, why would you? For me, I wouldn't do it out of self-respect because, first of all, the product is bad and not worth that price. And second of all, it's basically I'm disrespecting and insulting myself. Basically, I'm allowing myself to be taken for a ride, buying tickets at that price. When Ozzy Osbourne was touring on his last tour, and other famous entertainment singers and other icons of entertainment, tickets were never or aren't that close to price. I know everything has gone up in price when it comes to entertainment, be it NBA games, stuff like that, but it's just unreasonable. But WWE stands will buy that ticket, will go to that consistently, and it shows to me that I wouldn't even call them fans, like I mentioned earlier. They're stands. They'll do anything. They'll basically force feed them anything, and they're good with it. Another thing is basically they'll defend it as if they'll defend the WWE, not even at the point that it's tribalism. It's more so as if they're defending their own family honor, their own mother. As growing up, being in the schoolyard, some boy, let's say, because I'm a male, and if a guy said to me, this about your mother, guys always go for those insults. That's fighting words, and you're about to fight and whatever. You defend your mother's honor. But yeah, they take it and run with it like that, as if you insulted their mother themselves and stuff like that. And even if they know wholeheartedly, deep inside, because it must be that deep, because I don't know how you don't have critical thinking to be like, okay, what is the point of this? They will literally, defend it tooth and nail, day in, day out, on social media and so on. Basically, to them, it's as if it's their own child. You know what I mean? They're basically, it's as if they're brainwashed. Literally, like I said, it's like they're NPC players. And then, you'll, for example, give them a product for, let's say, the last 20 Raws, Monday Night Raws. It'll be such a bad show overall, average show at best. And then all of a sudden, you'll get a whatever, like basically you'll get a 6 out of 10 promo, and they'll say, oh my goodness, this is a pipe bomb. Oh my goodness, this is iconic. It's like, man, at that point, because you're getting the bare minimum, and then you take it and you make it as if it's the greatest of all time, but it's only in that scope and in that surrounding universe of the WWE stan. And then people, of course, generally, parrot and, copy things and so on. Because when you go to a WWE video, for example, on YouTube, when you see the comments, you can see the way they're written, and of course, different countries of the world. But that aside, of course, WWE is a global product. You can tell a lot of the fans are literally children, like actual kids. You can just tell, they take it, oh, Roman Reigns is my favorite. I wish he beats this. And it's like, okay, they're kids. You give them slack. They don't understand better. Their consciousness, let's say an 8-year-old's conscious thinking ability is not the same as, let's say, when they're 10, let alone when they're 15 and 20. But you have a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, these WWE stans, that literally think along that way, but they're actually able to kind of move the cranks a little bit, but they don't question the cranks and what they do, why they're there, how it connects, why it doesn't make sense, or why it makes sense. But yeah, just a quick rundown, what to expect on this page. A lot of wrestling, talk about present product, past product, what we can expect in the future. Just a quick rundown, what to expect. This is kind of a rough, guide. Like I said, I'm playing a Yakuza here. Comment which Yakuza game you think I'm playing, and if you get it right, I'll comment and reply to you. What was I going to say? So I haven't been able to really give you my thoughts on this, so I will revisit this in the future in more detail. As you know, if you do know, Yakuza games have a lot of dialogue you have to read as the let's say if you see the in-story videos of the game, they speak Japanese, and then even throughout the game generally, overall, it's all in English. So, for example, there's a lot of reading. But yes, keep tuned, subscribe, like, and share, and get ready, because this is going to be a thrill ride. You won't hear the standard opinion about wrestling or other things. You'll hear critical analysis, deeper understanding, and perspective of all things.